All right, good Monday evening, everybody. David Paul with you here in the KHOU 11 Weather Center. It's time for the Tropical Update, and there actually is a spot. The Hurricane Center has an outlook, 10% chance for something to develop off the Carolina coast. We're going to look at that in just a minute. It's been an interesting day because we were looking at this in the weather office, and Chris and I were looking at it, and the best way to look at how this tropical entity off the East Coast is going to play out is by looking at the dust forecast, which we've been paying very close attention to for the past several days. So we'll look at all that as we move along. First of all, you are here. It is June the 29th. We are still at a time when statistically we have very little activity, but we're getting close to when things begin to possibly increase a little bit, thus the second spot off the Carolina coast. And then, of course, the peak here as we get into the second half of August and through the first part of October. That's where most named storms occur. So we're not in the really busy time yet. We've had Arthur. If something were to develop, Bertha's the next name on the list, and we'll keep you posted as we move along. So here we go. If we're going to get tropical development in June, it quite often most likely happens here, either in the northwest Carib, the Gulf, or up the East Coast. So Arthur was part of a tropical system that came into Central America, broke apart, but then was able to kind of come across the Gulf. It came into Mexico, and then it redeveloped right here as Tropical Storm Arthur, and then went up the Texas coast and Louisiana. So that fits with what we expect to see statistically this time of the year in the Gulf, and then this new spot sitting right here, 10% chance for development. Modeling on it is not aggressive. So Carolina folks, I'm not overly concerned. You shouldn't be overly concerned. You should definitely monitor the forecast. So let me just set the stage. This is the big picture. And what you're looking at is the flow at 500 millibars. So that's at about 17,000 feet or so on average. And the flow is around that mid-level high. The 500 millibars is about halfway up through the atmosphere. And the flow is a big clockwise circle around that high. That's the heat dome. That's bringing all the heat advisories to the southeast United States. They're covered in heat advisories. We're on the edge of that dome. We're close to heat advisory criteria, not quite over the line, but issue your own heat advisory for Houston for heat feels like temps that today topped 109 at one point. So that's the setup. Underneath that dome, it's hot, it's dry. Around the edge, you can get scattered thunderstorms, and you can see the monsoonal flow coming up through Mexico, now into Texas and New Mexico. And then you can see the flow of thunderstorms around the edge across Minnesota, Lake Superior. And then you see the couple of thunderstorms here following the flow to the south and west through Georgia and into Florida right now this evening. So that's the big picture. And you can see a few scattered showers here off of Wilmington and the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That is part of this little spot out there that has a slight chance for development. With a flow like this, if something were to develop here and get caught up in the flow, it could come across Florida and into the Gulf. So, obviously we here in Houston, we're looking at that, but the modeling actually is not showing that is what's going to happen. And it was the dust modeling that began to give us a clue on exactly, at least for now, where the most likely outcome is for this little entity off the East Coast. So here's all the dust we have right now today. And this is what we've been tracking here in Houston. And then you look off the East Coast, and you can see there's a little bit of dust out here. You see the big flow. I've got the high drawn in there. So this dust is going to continue across Texas, and then it's going to lift up into the Great Lakes. So I'm going to put this in motion in just a moment. You'll see the dust go up to the Great Lakes tomorrow. So Chicago, Minneapolis, you get hazy skies tomorrow from Saharan dust wrapping around that high pressure dome. But I want you to watch how the dust begins to make a little curlicue out here. So that's where that blob of dust is headed. I want you to watch right here. Just watch here. And I'll put this in motion, and you'll see. You have to squint, but there it is, a little curlicue. See it right there? See the curlicue? So that is a weak little area of low pressure trying to form at the surface. It's below this flow that you're seeing here at the surface, and it's pulling in some of the dust, and the dust is making that little comma shape, which indicates that, hey, low pressure is trying to form down here. And so that's the spot that the Hurricane Center is keeping an eye on. So it was the dust. Let me just back that up, and I'll show it to you again. You can get a better look at this. It's hard to see the first time. So we'll back it up. I'll just kind of walk back and forth. So see the curlicue? Let me go back. Watch right here. And there you see a little curlicue, a little comma-shaped cloud right in here, a little low pressure trying to form. So the dust showing us, revealing where the surface low is trying to form. And this is what the Hurricane Center has put up on their tropical outlook right here, 10% chance that we get some sort of low pressure area trying to form here. So it's a very low chance, very low chance. And when we were looking at the forecast radar, and what I've got here, this is still the mid-level flow. And so if we're going to see low pressure form, you're going to see the comma-shaped form in the rain bands out here. So we'll put this in motion between Monday, we'll go into Tuesday. It tries to form something, and then it really just isn't able to. This is now through Thursday. And by the time we get to Thursday, look at the flow. So I'm showing you this flow because these are the steering currents. This is where the low, if something tries to form, is going to go. And now, instead of the low coming way down like here, look at the flow catching right here and coming into the Carolinas. Okay? So that would indicate that whatever is trying to form here will more than likely go into the Carolinas. And I think what you're going to get North and South Carolina is an increased rain chance. I don't expect we're going to see tropical development here. First of all, there's dust trying to get into it. That's dry air, exactly the opposite. And then it is under the influence of that dome of high pressure, even though it's around the edge of it. So it looks unlikely it'll form, but that will bring a lot of rain, I think, into the Carolinas. That, I think, is the most likely outcome. And in fact, if we go back to the dust one more time, I think this shows it more clearly than anything else. You see the little low trying to form here? Squint and watch with me where that dust goes. It starts to rotate, and then the flow, as that high moves northeast, the flow comes into the Carolinas. So whatever there is down here is going to come into the Carolinas. But what you can see is that there's not much. In fact, by Thursday, Friday, we're not seeing much of anything. So that's the story on that little 10% spot. The modeling is not showing any development. So we can go back to the traditional modeling. We look at this every time we do the update. This is the GFS and the Euro. This is a surface low pressure forecast. And what I've done is the highest pressure isobar, surface isobar, is 1,010 millibars. So this has got to be 1,010 millibars or below. That means we're starting to see pressures drop, and that's what we need to see if we're going to get a tropical system forming. So this is today. We have nothing. If something's going to form, it'll look like right there. You'll see the isobars circling off and coming together like that. That's a broad area of low pressure across the northern plains in the U.S. And we don't see that anywhere in the tropical development region. So that's Monday. We go into Tuesday, we go into Wednesday, we go into Thursday. Nothing. The Euro, GFS, they don't pick up on it. And that's what the dust modeling is showing as well. There's just not enough to get it going out there. So it looks unlikely that anything will develop. We'll go further out, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, going to Tuesday, go all the way out to next Wednesday and Thursday. Absolutely nothing of any consequence on the modeling showing up. So overall, even though this spot is here with a 10% chance for development, there are no modeling suggestions that something is about to form. So 10% chance. This is what it looks like on satellite this evening, and you can see what scattered thundershower activity there was out here earlier today is just fizzled. So we really don't even have a disturbance at the moment. Gulf's quiet, Carib's quiet, the rest of the Atlantic is quiet. No new tropical development is expected over the next 7 days, other than keeping an eye on that 10% spot right there. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, that's where we stand. So overall, we are quiet this evening. We'll do it again tomorrow at 9 o'clock, same time. And of course, our next live broadcast here on KHOU 11 News is at 10 o'clock. We'll see you then with all the soccer update and the rest of the day's headlines and weather. We'll see you at 10.